The envelope arrived at LeBron's house with no return address. Inside, a single photograph from 1984, the year LeBron was born. The photo shows a basketball court in Akron. And there, in the center, is a boy who looks exactly like 8-year-old LeBron. Same face, same build, same basketball in his hands. But the date stamped on the back says March 1984. LeBron wasn't born until December 1984. So who is this kid, and why does he look identical to LeBron 9 months before LeBron was even born? March 15, 2024. LeBron James, 39 years old and in his 21st NBA season, came home from practice to find his mail sorted on the kitchen counter as usual. Bills, junk mail, a few packages, and one plain manila envelope with no return address, just his name and address written in unfamiliar handwriting. LeBron almost threw it away. He got strange mail constantly. Fans, scammers, random people wanting something, but something made him open it. Inside was a single photograph, old, faded, the kind with the date stamp from an old film camera printed in orange in the bottom right corner, 03/15/84. The photo showed a rundown outdoor basketball court, Spring Street Courts in Akron. LeBron recognized it immediately. He'd played there as a kid, the court where his basketball journey had really begun. But it was the boy in the center of the photo that made LeBron's blood run cold. The kid was maybe 7 or 8 years old, tall for his age, skinny, holding a basketball, wearing shorts and a faded t-shirt. And his face was LeBron's face. Not similar, not looks like, identical, the same eyes, the same nose, the same exact facial structure, like someone had photoshopped 8-year-old LeBron into a picture from 1984, except LeBron wasn't born until December 30, 1984, 9 months after this photo was taken. LeBron stared at the photo for a long time, his mind trying to make sense of what he was seeing. It had to be a prank. Someone had doctored an old photo of him, changed the date stamp. That was the only logical explanation. But the photo looked authentic. The aging was real, the fading, the slight discoloration, the way old photographs degraded over time, and the background details were right for 1984. The cars visible in the parking lot behind the court, the clothing of other people in the distance, the graffiti on the wall. Everything screamed early 1980s. LeBron turned the photo over. On the back, written in the same handwriting as the envelope, were just 4 words: "Ask your mother, M." LeBron's hands started shaking. He looked at the photo again, and this time he noticed something he'd missed before. Behind the boy with the basketball, partially visible in the frame, was a woman, young, maybe late teens or early 20s. The photo quality wasn't good enough to see her face clearly, but something about her posture, her build, seemed familiar. LeBron pulled out his phone and called his mother. Gloria James answered on the second ring. "Bron, what's wrong? You sound upset." "Mum, I need you to come over, right now. There's something I need to show you." "What is it?" "Just please come. I can't explain over the phone." Gloria lived 30 minutes away. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. LeBron sat at his kitchen table, staring at the photo, trying to find some explanation that made sense. A cousin he'd never met, a relative he didn't know about. But the resemblance was too exact for a cousin. This wasn't family resemblance. This was identical. When Gloria arrived, LeBron could see the worry on her face. "What's going on? You scared me." LeBron handed her the photograph without saying anything. Gloria took it, looked at it, and her face went completely white. The photo slipped from her fingers and fell to the table. She grabbed the edge of the counter to steady herself. "Mum." LeBron stood up, concerned. "Are you okay? Who is that in the photo?" Gloria's eyes filled with tears. She sat down heavily in the chair, still staring at the photograph on the table like it was a ghost she'd never expected to see again. "Mum, you're scaring me. Who is that kid? Why does he look exactly like me? The date says March 1984. I wasn't born yet. So who?" "His name was Marcus," Gloria said quietly, her voice breaking. "Marcus Raymond James. Your twin brother." The world tilted. LeBron felt like he couldn't breathe. What? You were twins," Gloria said, tears streaming down her face now. "Identical twins. I was pregnant with both of you. But Marcus died before you were born." LeBron sat down slowly. His mind couldn't process what he was hearing. A twin brother who died. A twin brother he'd never known about. How? What happened? Gloria took a shaky breath. "I need to tell you the whole story, but it's going to be hard to hear. Are you sure you want to know?" "Mom, I have a right to know. I had a brother, a twin. How could you never tell me this?" "Because it was the most painful thing that ever happened to me," Gloria said, her voice raw. "And I thought if I never talked about it, if I never told anyone, it would hurt less. I was wrong. But by the time I realized that, so many years had passed, and I didn't know how to tell you. She wiped her eyes and began the story she'd kept buried for 39 years. In 1983, Gloria James was 16 years old, pregnant, and terrified. The father, Anthony McClelland, had disappeared the moment he found out Gloria was pregnant. Gloria's own mother had kicked her out, ashamed of having a teenage daughter pregnant out of wedlock. Gloria was living with friends, bouncing between couches, trying to figure out how she was going to raise a baby with no money, no support, and no plan. When she was 4 months pregnant, a free clinic doctor told her, "Miss James, you're having twins." Twins. Gloria had barely been able to imagine raising one baby. Two seemed impossible, but she was determined. She'd name them Marcus and LeBron, strong names for boys who would have to be strong to survive the circumstances they were being born into. Marcus would be the older twin by a few minutes. LeBron would be the younger. She'd love them both fiercely. She'd figure it out somehow. Gloria was 7 months pregnant when it happened. She woke up one morning with severe cramping and bleeding. A friend rushed her to the hospital. The doctors did an emergency ultrasound. "Miss James," the doctor said gently, "I'm very sorry. One of the twins, there's no heartbeat. The fetus has died in utero." Gloria screamed. She'd already fallen in love with both of her sons, had already imagined their futures, had already been talking to them at night, telling them about the world they'd be born into, promising she'd protect them, and now one of them was gone. Marcus, her firstborn, dead before he'd even had a chance to live. What about the other baby? Gloria asked through her tears. "Is LeBron okay?" The doctor nodded. "The other twin appears healthy, but we need to monitor you very closely. Having a deceased twin in utero can cause complications for the surviving twin. You'll need to come in for regular checkups." For the next 2 months, Gloria carried both of her sons, one living, one dead. It was a psychological torture she wouldn't wish on anyone. Every kick she felt from LeBron was a reminder that Marcus would never kick. Every doctor's appointment where they checked LeBron's heartbeat was a reminder that Marcus's heart had stopped beating. On December 30th, 1984, Gloria went into labor. The delivery was complicated. Having carried a deceased twin for 2 months had caused issues. But finally, LeBron was born, alive, crying, perfect, and right after him, they delivered Marcus, stillborn, silent, a complete baby who had never taken a breath. The hospital staff asked Gloria if she wanted to hold Marcus to. They took photos. The hospital had a program for parents who'd lost children, helping them have something to remember their baby by. Gloria had 3 photos taken of Marcus. Then they took him away to prepare the body for burial. Gloria was 16, broke, and alone. She couldn't afford a funeral, couldn't afford a proper burial. The county provided a basic cremation. Marcus's ashes were given to her in a plain wooden box. She kept that box for years, moving it from place to place, as she and baby LeBron moved from apartment to apartment, couch to couch, shelter to shelter. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" LeBron asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I had a brother, a twin brother. I deserve to know." "I know," Gloria said. "I know you did. But Bron, I was 16 years old, alone, grieving, trying to keep you alive and fed and safe. Talking about Marcus was too painful, so I just didn't. I told myself I'd tell you when you were older, but then you were 5, and I hadn't told you. Then you were 10, and it seemed too late. Then you were in high school being called the chosen one, and it felt wrong to burden you with grief about a brother you'd never known. So I kept putting it off, and then decades passed, and the secret became too big to tell." "What happened to his ashes?" Gloria looked down. "I buried them, at Spring Street Courts, under that basketball court where you learned to play. It was the only piece of land I felt connected to. We'd lived near there for a while, when you were little. I couldn't afford a cemetery plot, but I wanted Marcus to be somewhere meaningful. So one night, I dug a small hole under the court and buried the box with his ashes. March 15th, 1992. You were 7 years old. I told you I was visiting a friend that night, but really, I was burying your brother and saying a final goodbye." LeBron looked at the photo again. "This was taken in March 1984, 9 months before I was born. But Marcus died in October 1984, still in the womb. So who is this kid in the photo?" Gloria's face changed. Confusion, then understanding, then something like fear. "Let me see that again." She picked up the photo and studied it closely. Then she flipped it over and read the back. "Ask your mother." Her hands started shaking. "This isn't possible." "What isn't possible?" Gloria stood up abruptly and went to her purse. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through photos frantically. "When you were 8 years old, I took you to Spring Street Courts. We were living nearby, and you were obsessed with basketball. I took a photo of you that day. I haven't looked at it in years, but I know I still have it." She found the photo in her cloud storage and showed it to LeBron. It was him at age 8, on a basketball court, holding a ball. He was wearing different clothes than the boy in the mysterious photo, and the angle was different, but the resemblance was obvious. Same court, same age, same kid. "Except that's you in 1992, Gloria said. "The photo we just got is dated 1984, 8 years before this photo of you was taken." They stared at each other, both thinking the same impossible thought. "Unless," Gloria whispered, "unless it's not impossible. Unless somehow, in some way I don't understand Marcus." She couldn't finish the sentence. It was too crazy, too impossible. But what other explanation was there? Over the next several days, LeBron became obsessed with the mysterious photo. He had it analyzed by experts. The photo was authentic, not doctored, not manipulated. It was a genuine photograph from a film camera, printed on paper stock from the early 1980s, with age-appropriate degradation. The date stamp was part of the original photo, not added later. He hired a private investigator to research the background of the photo. Who had sent it? How did they get it? What did they know? The investigator couldn't find the sender. The envelope had been mailed from Akron, with no return address, no fingerprints, no DNA, no security camera footage of anyone dropping it in a mailbox. Dead end after dead end. But the investigator did find something interesting. In the Akron public records, there was a death certificate for Marcus Raymond James, born December 30, 1984, stillborn. Mother, Gloria Marie James. Father, unknown. So Marcus was real, LeBron said, staring at the death certificate. He existed. He was born, or not born, technically, but he was real. Then who is in the photo? The investigator asked. Because if Marcus died at birth in December 1984, he couldn't have been photographed at age 8 in March 1984. That's impossible. LeBron didn't have an answer, but he needed to find one. He decided to go to Spring Street Courts, to the place where the photo had been taken. The place where, according to Gloria, Marcus's ashes were buried. It was late at night when LeBron arrived. He didn't want to be recognized, didn't want to explain to anyone why LeBron James was digging around an old basketball court at midnight. He brought a flashlight, and absurdly, a shovel. He wasn't even sure what he was looking for. Answers, maybe? Closure? Something. The court looked different than it had in the 1984 photo. It had been repaved several times, new lines painted, new hoops installed. But it was the same place. He could feel it. LeBron stood in the center of the court, where the boy in the photo had stood. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine it. March 1984. A boy who looked exactly like him, standing right here, holding a basketball. But who was he? If Marcus had died in the womb in October 1984, he never could have stood here in March 1984, unless LeBron's eyes snapped open, unless his mother had been mistaken about when Marcus died, unless there was something she didn't know, or something she'd been told that wasn't true. He called Gloria immediately, even though it was past midnight. Mum, when Marcus died in October 1984, did you see the body? During that appointment when they told you one of the twins had died, did they show you the body? Did you see proof? They did an ultrasound. They showed me on the screen. There was no heartbeat for one of the babies. But you didn't see a body. Not until I was born in December, right? Right. They delivered Marcus after they delivered you. That's when I held him and she trailed off, realizing what LeBron was implying. What if they made a mistake? LeBron said. What if both twins were alive in October? What if something else happened? Gloria was silent for a long moment. Then come to my house, right now. There's something I need to show you. Something I haven't looked at in 40 years. LeBron drove to his mother's house, speeding the entire way. When he arrived, Gloria was in her attic, going through old boxes she hadn't opened in decades. After you were born, Gloria said, pulling out a worn cardboard box, the hospital gave me paperwork, medical records, birth certificates. I never really looked at most of it. I was 16, overwhelmed, grieving. I just shoved it all in a box and tried to forget about it. She opened the box and started going through papers, old hospital bills, discharge paperwork, and then an envelope marked confidential medical records. Gloria had never opened it. She opened it now. Inside were medical notes from Gloria's pregnancy, doctor's appointments, ultrasound reports, and then stapled together, a set of documents from October 14, 1984, the day Gloria had been told one twin had died. Gloria read through the notes slowly, then her face went pale. What? LeBron asked. What does it say? Gloria looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. It says they detected fetal demise in twin A, but then there's a note from a different doctor, dated 2 days later. It says, previous diagnosis possibly incorrect, request follow-up ultrasound, patient did not return for appointment. They weren't sure. LeBron said, they told you one twin was dead, but they weren't actually sure. I never got that follow-up appointment, Gloria said, her voice shaking. I was scared, depressed. I assumed they were right. I never went back until it was time to deliver 2 months later. They stared at each other, the impossible implications hanging in the air. What if Marcus didn't die in October? What if he was alive the whole time? What if something happened during the delivery? What if they lied? Gloria finished. But why would they lie? Why would they tell me one twin was stillborn if both were alive? LeBron pulled out his phone and called his private investigator. I need you to dig deeper. Akron Hospitals, 1984. Any records you can find about twin births. Any irregularities. Anything unusual. The investigator called back 3 days later with information that changed everything. LeBron, I found something. In 1984, there was a scandal at the hospital where you were born. A nurse was stealing newborns and selling them on the black market to couples who couldn't adopt legally. The hospital covered it up to avoid lawsuits. The nurse, her name was Margaret Walsh, was quietly fired but never prosecuted. She died in 2003. You're saying, I'm saying it's possible that your twin brother didn't die. It's possible he was stolen, given to another family, and you and your mother were told he was stillborn, so you'd never look for him." Gloria started crying. "My baby. They took my baby." "But if that's true," LeBron said, trying to think through the implications, "then Marcus would be alive. He'd be 39 years old. He looked at the photo again, the boy standing on the basketball court in March 1984, except that was impossible, because Marcus wouldn't have been born yet, unless the photo wasn't from 1984, unless someone had changed the date stamp, unless someone wanted him to think something impossible was true. But why? Who would do that? And how did they get a photo of a child who looked exactly like 8-year-old LeBron? The answer came a week later, in another envelope with no return address. Inside was a letter. "LeBron, my name is Marcus James. I'm 39 years old. I was raised in Columbus, Ohio, by a family who told me I was adopted. I never knew my birth parents, but when I was 30, I took a DNA test out of curiosity. It matched me with several people in Akron, Ohio, distant cousins, mostly, but the DNA suggested I had a close relative in Akron, possibly a brother. I've been trying to find my biological family for years. Then I saw you play basketball on TV, and I saw my own face. We're identical, LeBron. I don't know how or why, but I know we're connected. The photo I sent you wasn't from 1984. I changed the date stamp to get your attention, to make you ask questions. The photo is actually from 1992. It's me at age 8, on a basketball court in Columbus. The same age you were when your mother took a similar photo of you in Akron. I'm not trying to extort you or claim anything from you. I just want to know the truth. Am I your brother, your twin? Did something happen when we were born that separated us? If you want to meet, I'll be at Spring Street Courts in Akron on March 30th at 3 p.m. I'll understand if you don't come, but I hope you do. Marcus." LeBron showed the letter to Gloria. She read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face. "He's alive," she whispered. "My baby is alive." "We don't know that for sure," LeBron said gently. "This could still be a scam, someone who looks like me trying to claim a connection." "There's only one way to find out," Gloria said. "We meet him, we do a DNA test, we get answers." March 30th arrived. LeBron, Gloria, and a security team went to Spring Street Courts at 3 p.m. There were also lawyers present, and a DNA testing specialist ready to administer a test if needed. At 3:05 p.m., a man walked onto the court. LeBron felt like he was looking in a mirror. The man was his exact height, his exact build, his exact facial structure. The resemblance was impossible to deny. If this was a coincidence, it was the most extraordinary coincidence in human history. "Hi," the man said nervously. "I'm Marcus." Gloria started sobbing. "You look just like him, just like my baby, just like both of my babies." They did the DNA test right there. Swabs from Marcus's cheek, swabs from LeBron's cheek, swabs from Gloria's cheek. The specialist took them to a lab with instructions to rush the results. While they waited, Marcus told his story. He'd been raised by Richard and Susan Walsh in Columbus. They'd told him he was adopted as a newborn. They'd said his birth mother couldn't care for him. They'd loved him and raised him well. He'd had a good childhood, but when he turned 18, he'd asked his parents about his biological family. His adoptive mother, Susan, had broken down crying and told him the truth. Her mother, Margaret Walsh, had been a nurse who stole newborns. Susan and Richard couldn't have children. Margaret had brought them a baby and told them not to ask questions. They didn't know it was kidnapping until my grandmother died, and they found documents in her things, Marcus explained. Letters proving she'd taken babies from poor mothers and given them to wealthy couples for money. My parents were horrified. They'd thought I was a legitimate adoption. But I wasn't. I was stolen. But the hospital told me you were dead, Gloria said. They showed me a body. I held a dead baby. Marcus's face darkened. I found my grandmother's notes. She would sometimes deliver the babies herself when working alone. She'd tell mothers their babies were stillborn, then claim the bodies for processing. But instead of processing them, she'd give them to couples who wanted to adopt. When 2 babies were born, she'd tell the mother one was stillborn, so the mother wouldn't expect 2 babies to come home, and she'd sell the dead baby. But I held a dead baby, Gloria insisted. I know I did. She kept stillborn babies from other births, Marcus said quietly. Premature babies that actually did die. She'd present those bodies to mothers whose babies she was stealing. That way they'd grieve a real dead body and never look for a living child. The cruelty of it made LeBron physically ill. His mother had grieved for 40 years over a baby who wasn't actually dead. She'd held a stranger's dead child while her own living son was being sold to another family. The DNA results came back 2 days later. They were definitive. Marcus James was Gloria's biological son, and he was LeBron James's identical twin brother. The media storm that followed was unlike anything LeBron had ever experienced. The story was everywhere. LeBron James discovers his stolen twin. The hospital issued a statement apologizing for the sins of a corrupt employee from 40 years ago. A lawyer filed a lawsuit on Gloria's behalf. The FBI opened an investigation into Margaret Walsh's criminal network, even though everyone involved was likely dead. But for LeBron and Marcus and Gloria, the media circus was background noise. What mattered was the family that had been separated for 39 years and was now impossibly reunited. Marcus met LeBron's children, his niece and nephews. He met Savannah, LeBron's wife. He began building relationships with the family he'd never known he had. But it wasn't simple. How do you build a relationship with a twin brother you didn't know existed until you were 39 years old? How do you bridge 4 decades of separate lives? They started slowly. Coffee meetings, phone calls, getting to know each other as people, not just as biological relatives. They discovered they had similar mannerisms, similar speech patterns, similar tastes, but they also had profound differences, shaped by 4 decades of completely different life experiences. Marcus had grown up middle class in Columbus. He'd gone to college. He worked as a software engineer. He'd never played basketball competitively, had no interest in it beyond watching it casually on TV. He'd been raised by 2 parents who, despite the horrifying origin of his adoption, had loved him and given him a stable life. LeBron had grown up poor in Akron, had struggled with homelessness and food insecurity, had channeled everything into basketball, had become one of the most famous people on earth. Same DNA, same face, same beginnings, completely different lives. Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if we hadn't been separated? Marcus asked during one of their early meetings. All the time, LeBron admitted. If you'd been raised with me, maybe you'd have been the one playing basketball. Maybe we both would have. Maybe neither of us would have. Maybe we'd have kept each other out of trouble, or gotten into more trouble, or some completely different path neither of us can imagine. Or maybe I'd have died, Marcus said quietly. My adoptive parents had money, good health care. If I'd been raised in poverty like you were, maybe I wouldn't have survived. Maybe the separation saved my life, while it gave you the hunger that made you great. It was a thought LeBron hadn't considered, that maybe this tragedy had led to outcomes that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Not that it made the crime okay, it didn't, but life was more complicated than simple good and bad. Gloria struggled the most. She'd grieved for Marcus for 40 years, had carried that pain through every milestone of LeBron's life, every championship, every achievement tinged with the sadness of thinking Marcus should have been here too. And now Marcus was here, alive, a full-grown man with his own life, and Gloria didn't know how to process it. Joy, and grief, and anger and confusion, all mixed together. I lost 40 years with you, she told Marcus through tears during one of their visits. I'll never get those years back. Your first steps, your first words, your childhood, all of it, stolen from me. I know, Marcus said, and I'm sorry, even though it's not my fault. I'm sorry you went through that, but we have whatever time is left. That has to be enough. LeBron watched his mother and his brother trying to build a relationship that should have existed their whole lives, and he felt a complicated mix of emotions: gratitude that Marcus was alive, anger at the nurse who'd stolen him, sadness for the childhood they'd all missed together, and a strange sense of displacement, like he'd spent 39 years being an only child, and now suddenly he wasn't, and he didn't quite know where he fit in this new family dynamic. As news of their reunion spread, other stories emerged, other families who suspected their babies had been stolen by Margaret Walsh, other twins or siblings who'd been separated, a whole network of pain and separation that had been hidden for decades. LeBron used his platform to advocate for better safeguards in hospitals, for investigations into historical adoption fraud, for justice for families like his. He funded an organization that helped separated families reunite using DNA testing. But mostly, he just tried to be a brother to Marcus, to build something from this bizarre, painful, miraculous situation. On December 30, 2024, their 40th birthday, LeBron and Marcus stood together at Spring Street Courts, the place where the mysterious photo had been taken, sort of. The place where Marcus's ashes were supposedly buried. They weren't. The place where LeBron had learned to play basketball while Marcus grew up 150 miles away, not knowing he had a twin brother. 40 years, Marcus said. Half our lives. We can't get those years back, LeBron said. But we have the next 40, maybe more if we're lucky. I don't know if we'll ever feel like real brothers, Marcus admitted. Not like brothers who grew up together. Too much time has passed. Too much life has been lived separately. That's okay, LeBron said. We'll be whatever we can be. That's enough. They didn't hug or have some emotional breakthrough moment. They just stood there together, 2 men who shared DNA and a tragic history, trying to figure out what came next. The photo that started it all, the mysterious picture that had arrived with no return address, hung framed in LeBron's home office, a reminder of the brother he didn't know he had, the life he didn't know had been stolen, the family that had been broken by greed and cruelty, but that had somehow, impossibly found each other again. The letter M on the back of the photo, Marcus, his brother, the twin who died before he was born, except he hadn't died at all. He'd been alive the whole time, just lost, and now, finally, he was found. This story is fiction.
Gloria James did not give birth to twins, and LeBron James does not have a stolen twin brother. However, the underlying horror, babies being stolen from hospitals and sold to adoptive families, is tragically real and has occurred throughout history in various places. This story was created to explore themes of identity, family, fate, and the invisible crimes that can shape entire lives. If you're interested in the real history of forced adoptions and stolen babies, research the Georgia Tan scandal, the baby farms of the early 1900s, and more recent cases in countries like Spain and Argentina. Truth is sometimes darker than fiction,